lightning inside me, son of a god. I'm like a titan that's rising, oh, just you watch. I'm stepping into fate, there is no time to waste. I've got that lightning inside me, this is how legends are made.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back into the Round 6 podcast. We are your hosts, Keaton Cordell and Jake Smith, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas and Denver, Colorado. We're back. We were off for a couple weeks, had a lot of stuff going on, got a lot of stuff cooking behind the scenes, but we're here now, ready for a great UFC fight card from Orlando, Florida. We've got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We've got the Fort Worth native Kevin Holland. We've got Brian Barberena versus RDA. We've got Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Pavlovich. We've got Jack Hermanson. We've got Eric Anders. We've got Kyle Dawkins. You name it, we've got it from a great fight night in Orlando, Florida. The UFC hitting it hard again to wrap up the year. I'm really looking forward to a lot of these fights. Anytime Kevin Holland fights, you know Jake and I are going to be absolutely ecstatic because he trains right here in Fort Worth, where we're both from. So big card to look forward to this weekend. We didn't have a card last weekend, so that kind of sucks. Had a card the week before, but we weren't really paying attention to it too much. So it's good to be back in action. Feels good to be back on the pod talking to you, Jake. And we've got a lot to dive into today. A lot of good bets out there, as we always do. But I kind of want to turn it over to you real quick first, just to get your thoughts on this weekend's main event. It's going to be a great stylistic matchup. We've got Kevin Holland, who's a black belt in Kung Fu. We've got Stephen Thompson, who's an absolute thriller in the karate game. So a lot to look forward to stylistically in this main card. I know it's, for us, kind of hard to pick against Kevin Holland in any of these matchups, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. What do you think we get stylistically? Stephen Thompson's getting up there in age, so there's a lot to be kind of discovered for what he brings to the table anymore. And then Kevin Holland is just as wild as it gets. You really never know what you're going to get from him, except for a great fight and a whole hell of a lot of entertainment. So what do you see this weekend for the main event?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what Kevin's been asking for I don't know how many fights now in a row. He's just wanted a striking battle. He wants someone to stand and bang with him. So I'm expecting Kevin to do exactly that for, I wouldn't say the whole fight, but I mean, at least 3-4 rounds of it. If it's not going his way, Kevin has the ability to take it to the ground, get the finish. We've seen him finish with a Darce. We've seen him take people's backs. We've seen what he's done off of his back as well to the likes of what's his name? Jacare.
Yep.
So I'm looking to see Kevin show off his striking with Steven, stand for a little bit. If it gets tough, take it to the ground. But, I mean, this fight's going to be awesome. It's a stylistic matchup he's been looking for. Wonder Boy always puts on a show no matter what, like, who he's fighting. So, yeah, this is an awesome card.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great fights on here, too. I mean, a fight that I'm looking forward to, aside from the main, is Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. Obviously, both guys have recent history with Derek Lewis. Tai Tuivasa coming off of a loss, unfortunately, to Cyril Gane, but what a fight that was. And I think Tai definitely didn't lose any stock in anyone's books. He put on an absolute great fight against a guy that people thought were just going to walk right through him. And then Sergey Pavlovich just has cinder blocks for hands. So that fight's going to be an absolute brawl. I think someone's going out early, and our bet on this fight reflects that. So look forward for that here in just a little bit. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with you about the main event. I think this is the fight that both of these guys needed. We've seen them both get kind of dominated by wrestlers as of late. And I'm really excited to watch Kevin now even more than I was in the past. Not because I didn't like watching him in the past. I absolutely did, because he's Kevin Holland and he brings so much to the table no matter what weight class he's fighting at. But I think he's really kind of found his fit, if you will, at the welterweight division. More competitive from a weight standpoint. I think Kevin Holland probably walks around somewhere in the neighborhood of 185, 186. So being able to cut just a little bit of weight, get down to welterweight, and have just an absolutely massive reach advantage, I think is one of the biggest things for him stylistically. One question that I do have for you, though, that I saw online this week when we were looking at bets, A lot of people are saying that Kevin Holland's going to have a tougher time cutting Wonderboy off in the octagon. Obviously, this is in Orlando, Florida, so it's not the smaller octagon at the Apex. So I guess there's a lot to be discovered based on what kind of movement we're going to see from Wonderboy, but I wouldn't expect anything too different from what we've seen from him in the past with his style. But, styles aside, do you see this fight getting finished? Do you see this fight going the distance? Who do you think is going to have the big moments, and what do you think is going to be kind of some key factors for both of these guys going into this one?
So the biggest key factor, at least to me, is the fact that Kevin is 30 years old, entering his physical prime, and Wonderboy Thompson is approaching 40. So, especially with speed being Wonderboy's main factor over the length of his whole career, basically, like that. I mean, that's the first thing to go when you're getting up there in age. It's speed. Like you see, the older guys are still dominating at the heaviest divisions. Like light heavyweight and heavyweight, the champions are usually in their later upper 30s, sometimes even with Glover's case 40s. DC 40s in for the heavyweight championship. So speed is not as important up there. This is 185. These are some fast dudes. I mean, this is 170. I mean, even faster dudes. Kevin Holland is long and athletic, and he is quick. So I think Wonderboy is at quite a disadvantage purely because of his age on this one.
Yep, I completely agree with that. And Kevin Holland is getting right into his prime as far as age for fighting goes. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective as well. And I do agree with you in the point that you made earlier in saying that both of these guys are looking for striking battles. They're looking to keep it on the feet. But Kevin Holland, black belt under Travis Lutter in the jiu-jitsu game. We saw him, get through a couple tricky situations with Cowboy, the other Cowboy, not Cerrone, Cowboy Oliveira, yes, in his last fight. So I'm curious, do you think there's any potential on Saturday for Kevin to mix in some wrestling? Not necessarily trying to take it to the ground and get a finish on the ground. If it happens, it happens. But more so just to try to slow Wonderboy down and kind of mix in some different looks so that Wonderboy can't get in there and really feel comfortable setting up all of his shots.
Yeah, Kevin's one of the few fighters that fans might actually react positively when he goes to the wrestling. Like, we've been dying to see him show off the wrestling that he's claimed he's learned down in Fort Dagestan. So, I mean, I would love to see him shoot a takedown on Wonderboy, see what he can do. Like, I don't want to see a long, slow-burning, ground and pound, actual Dagestani style fight. But, I would love to see Kevin show off some of the wrestling he's claimed to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, he has said he's had it, and he's yet to really show it.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I think it's good for him as far as growth goes and moving forward and kind of working on those skills. It's one thing to work on it in the gym with training partners that you're comfortable with, but it's an entirely different thing to do it in a fight against a guy who, against all other options, is going to try to stop everything that you're throwing at him, because obviously Wonderboy doesn't really have any wrestling in the bag, just wants to keep it on the feet. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But another fight that I want to ask you about real quick before we get into our bets is this Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich fight. I think this is unfortunately not a co-main, but it's probably going to be as exciting as any other fight on the card as far as I'm concerned. Anytime,
the people's main.
Yeah, no doubt. And you say it all the time. Anytime you get two big heavyweights in there, it's always going to be fun, and you can always kind of expect someone to get knocked down or knocked out at some point just because of how big these guys are. But with both of their styles, too, I think this is another interesting stylistic matchup because Tai Tuivasa, we know he thrives in a brawl. We know when the fight looks ugly, it's probably going in Tai's favor. When the fight looks clean, it might not. Although Tai has done a lot to improve the technical side of his striking, Sergey Pavlovich poses a pretty tall task for him on Saturday, just because of the power that he possesses in his hands as well. Literally has bricks for hands. He's built like an absolute unit. So I think it goes without saying that everyone feels like someone's getting knocked out or put away in some way, shape, or form in the first round on this one. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. Who do you think is going to be the fighter that kind of has the edge coming into this one?
I mean, that's a tough one. Ty showed a lot against Cyril Gahn, and that's who is supposed to be the most feared striker in that division from a technical aspect. And Ty made it quite a good fight. It wasn't the normal brawl that he turns it into. It was a pretty technical striking bout. He landed some pretty good shots that are going to knock out a lot of heavyweights. So we have not seen Sergey compete at as high of a level as Ty has competed at. And Ty did it with Derek Lewis. He took some heavy shots from the king of knockouts. Sergey's got bricks for hands, but he's not the heavyweight knockout king that Derek Lewis is, and Ty put him away. So you can tell I'm leaning towards Ty. I'm not sure where we're going towards this. We'll find out in a little bit. But, someone's getting put away for sure. There's no doubt about that one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's interesting to draw some parallels between both of their fights with Derek Lewis. Obviously, Derek Lewis going through a little bit of a rough patch. You'd love to see him get it back together. And unfortunately, we lost him on a fight that was supposed to happen recently, just didn't materialize. But it's interesting if you look at both of their fights against Derek. And this is kind of the case with everyone that fights Derek. I don't think Derek's ever been in a fight that looks clean and technical. It's just kind of his style. And he tries to drag you into it and get you out of your style and fight in the way that he wants you to fight so that he can look for a knockout. But obviously Ty and Derek was an absolute brawl. Both guys just winging shots in there and looking for that one big one to land. But even when you look at Derek and Sergey's fight, when Sergey beat Derek, I do think it was an early stoppage, but the stoppage aside, that fight was pretty much a brawl too. Both guys were just throwing shots around and looking for a brawl and looking for that one big shot to land. So who's to say that that's not the case here on Saturday between both of these guys who have recent history in fights like that? So I can't think of a way in my mind where this fight makes it out of the first round, because I think inevitably both of these guys are just going to start opening up. Someone's going to find that shot that finds a home, and the fight's going to be over, and someone's going to end up looking up at the lights. I don't know who it's going to be, but interesting from a betting perspective too. If you're leaning towards Ty, you can get Ty's money line right now for plus 400, plus 300.
Similar to that, yeah.
He's a really heavy underdog for a guy that's just come off of a very impressive fight against Cyril Gahn. He was the first guy to ever knock Cyril Gahn down. We've never seen that before, and he's just not getting enough respect. And I think, do you think that's kind of the case throughout his entire career? Because I kind of feel like that's probably the case.
I feel like I'm always winning so much money on Tai Tuivasa by knockout, and I always take it by knockout too. I'm sure I'll do it this time. I don't know. I haven't checked the line, but I'm positive I'm going to take it. It's just always a great bet, and then you get to celebrate with a shoey.
Exactly, and you might get to see a shoey potentially in a graphic that comes up later in the show. Who knows? Who knows? But without further ado, I think it's about time we get into our bets. That's what the people want. Let's give them what they want.
So we must have been doing this show, I guess, long enough to now have had 2 Tai Tuivasa fights.
At least, yeah. Why do you say that?
Yeah. What?
I said, why do you say that? What made that thought spring into your mind?
We've had before.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we've been lucky enough even to see a shoey in person. We got to see one in Houston at the beginning of the year. That was electric. Although I feel like the crowd probably was leaning towards Derek Lewis in that one because we were in his backyard in Houston. You did a shoey with Ty, so I think it's safe to say that you definitely did not. And it was the right thing to do. I feel like you got if you're going in a group to a UFC fight where Ty fights and wins, someone's got to do a shoey.
Someone's doing it.
You cannot have been the only one in the Toyota Center to do a shoey.
Not a chance.
So, yeah, no way. But let's start looking into some bets here. So first, we'll start throwing out our picks of the week. We got some good ones. We've been on a pretty good little heater these last few cards. So the first one, right off the bat, going to the co-main, we've got RDA by decision. I think this is a pretty smart pick. This is one that I kind of identified right off the top when I was looking at bets. Brian Barberena looked pretty good in his last fight. There's definitely no lack of respect on my end for him, but I don't think Brian Barberena is one of those guys that's going to get put away too easily. You mentioned that the other day when we were looking at bets, and I tend to agree. So for that reason, we just think RDA by decision is the smart play because RDA's got the aptitude on the feet that he can get ahead on points if he needs to, and he can also take you to the ground and just get the points where necessary with control time and with submission attempts and some of those other avenues. So personally, I think this is the smart play. I think that RDA brings a lot more to the table from that perspective in this fight. So this is a really good one, and at a good line, -135, not too heavy of a favorite, getting some good value there.
Yeah, RDA is not a big knockout artist. He's got quite a few submissions on his record, but Barberana's only been subbed once in his career. And then RDA's got 16 wins by decision. Like, there's a good chance he's just going to either box this one to a decision or, like, box and wrestle, kind of shoot boxing style. But, yeah, Barberana's not getting put away, and RDA is going to dominate him also, in my opinion. So, love this pick, especially at pretty close to even money. All right, and next up we got Nicolau versus Schnell. We're taking the under 2.5 at -125. Now, we're leaning towards Nicolau to win this fight, and I think that's the good pick. But the reason for this is just because Schnell's allergic to decisions in the UFC. He's had 11 UFC fights. Only 2 of them have gone to the decision, and those were early in his career as well. This guy, win or lose, is going to have it finished.
Yeah, and I think we've got a good track record, too, of cashing on these unders. I know pretty much every card you look for a couple good unders to take. Under 2.5, you're more or less betting that the fight's going to be finished. You just don't get that extra 2.5 minutes, but you get it at a better line. So for that reason, I always think these unders are a great pick. And you're always on a tear of identifying these unders that are going to hit. And it blows my mind sometimes that you look at a fight and, like, we might not even look at stats on it yet. And you're like, yep, I like the under in that one. And it always hits. So
I love them. Usually they're dogs, too. This one's not. We do have one coming up, which I do love as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick there. And then moving on down, we've got Nico Price money line -140. He's fighting Phil Rowe. So I think Phil Rowe is someone that kind of similar to Neil Magny, people not struggle with, but he brings a lot to the table from like a jiu-jitsu standpoint. He's very long, super lanky guy, long legs. If he gets on his back, you can definitely kind of expect to find yourself in a bad spot if you don't kind of mind your P's and Q's on the ground. But Nico Price is one of those guys that always goes in there, looks to be entertaining, looks for those wild fights, and usually when he ends up in a wild exchange, he comes out on the better side of that. So Nico Price at -140, I think you're getting a lot of good value there. And for this one, I really feel strongly about Nico Price coming out and doing a good job just because he's fought a lot of high-level talent. If you look down the slate, he's fought Vicente Luque twice, and he's just fought a whole row of killers. And in a lot of those fights, he does pretty well. So I think this one's a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, that's exactly the only thing I was going to bring up was when you look at their records, sure, Nico Price is not as good as Phil Rowe's, but Nico's fought only killers, and I haven't heard of anybody on Phil Rowe's wins. So that's another reason why I'm going for this. Phil's just too much of a wild card at the moment to pick. So, I can't touch him until he's fought somebody. This might be his coming out party, but for now, Nico Price.
Yep, 100%. And then moving on down, we've got Guida versus Holtzman, under 2.5, +170. We're back at it with the unders. They always hit. Jake always picks the good ones there. So, Jake, since you picked this one, you might be able to talk to us a little bit more about it. But I think the reason for this one, primarily based on what you and I had discussed previously, was the fact that both of these guys are borderline geriatric for the UFC. So if you want to talk to that a little bit, but I that's the only reason I need to look at and take.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 40-year-old who's going to be 3 days out of turning 41 of Clay Guida, fighting Scott Holtzman, who just turned 39 in September. So yeah, two guys just so old coming in here to slug it out and or wrestle for Clay Guida. It's probably just they want to get out of there before 15 minutes. They're going to be so gassed, someone's going to get out. And then another thing to look at is their last few fights. Clay Guida has been knocked out in his last 2. Scott Holtzman has been subbed in his last 2. They keep getting finished. It's been the tale of these old guys need to retire, and they just keep hanging on. So this is going to be probably the 3rd finish in a row for one of them, and probably gloves off, put in the center of the octagon. We might see 2 retirements if Clay Guida ends up getting the finish. It's just time. Like, it's time for one of these guys to go, and the old guys always get finished.
Yeah, give me +170 on the old timers all day long.
Oh yeah,
I'm all about that.
This is like our last few bets, or the last bet slate we had, taking Gutierrez to finish Frankie Edgar. Like, In hindsight, that should have been an absolute like we took that fight just to not go the distance because we were very confident that was going to happen. But in hindsight, we should have taken Gutierrez by knockout.
Yeah,
We said it was going to happen. We just wanted a little bit of if Frankie won.
and there was never a
even-
chance.
No.
Never a chance in that one for Frankie. Rest in peace to Frankie Edgar. Next up, I think from both of our perspective, this is going to be one of our favorite fights of the night for several reasons. Not all of them that we can discuss on the podcast, but Tracy Cortez money line -110. She's fighting Amanda Hebas. Both of them bring a lot to the table, but one thing that you brought up earlier in the week in looking at some of these picks was that Tracy Cortez brings a lot to the table from the wrestling. She's a really aggressive wrestler, and she does a really good job kind of pushing that pace and applying that wrestling pressure that we normally see with fighters that kind of carry some of those attributes. So Tracy Cortez in a pick'em, obviously you can go either way on this. I think there's definitely things to be said about Amanda Hebas that make her stand out. But Tracy Cortez, the safe play here in a pick'em, -110. And I'm looking forward to this fight.
Yeah. I mean, the toughest thing for a jiu-jitsu ace, which is Amanda Hebas, is a wrestler, and that's Tracy Cortez. Every jiu-jitsu player fucking hates a wrestler. They just put that top pressure into you. Don't let you get any of your space to move around and wiggle and create all these submission attempts. So, I mean, Hebus is a slightly better striker in my opinion. So Cortez is clearly going to be wanting to get this to the ground, and if she does, she should be able to pass the guard, pressure down, advance, maybe ground and pound to a finish. Yeah, this should be a pretty simple win for Cortez, in my opinion.
All right, moving into the hammer of the week. My life over the last couple weeks, Jake, has been sorely lacking a Hebrew hammer of the week. So I'm very excited that we can go ahead and rectify that right now. So the Hebrew hammer of the week, normally one that you pick, but I think we were from the jump both on the same page on this one. How can you not go with our guy? He's the man, Kevin Holland.
I mean, yeah, there's no time this man fights other than fucking Hamzat Chimaev. And I think even maybe we might have sprinkled on him. I don't recall. But there's not a time that this guy fights that we're not taking Kevin Holland money line. We've lost on him a couple times, and that was to wrestlers. That was to Brunson. That was to Vettori. And that was to not a striking Vettori. That was a Vettori who just wanted to hold him down and do nothing. He's finally getting the matchup he asked for. He's kung fu fighting. Like, this is going to be an awesome fight. And it's not one I think that Wonder Boy wants. Wonder Boy is going to get pieced up on the feet. If Wonder Boy wants to just run around the octagon because he's got a little more space in the bigger cage, Kevin will get that takedown. Kevin will choke him out. Kevin's arms are so long, he'll darce him, he'll guillotine him, he'll do something of the sort. It's going to be a bad night for Wonder Boy.
Yep, no doubt about that one. And I think another interesting thing from a stylistic standpoint to bring up is that a lot of Wonder Boy's highlights, as they were, are kind of those sneaky setups and like the setups that he uses for like those kind of sneaky attacks. So like one of the best ones for him is kind of that left high kick that comes over like behind the opposing fighter's shoulder and they don't even see it, and all of a sudden they're on the ground and they don't know what hit them. Kevin's a second-degree black belt in Kung Fu. He's going to be looking for that all night long. He knows exactly what he's getting into. So I don't think unless Wonder Boy just finds that, miraculous shot, none of those are going to be effective against Kevin, in my opinion. So for that reason, it's all the more reason to take Kevin, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like,
he's ready for this fight.
Exactly. He's been training for this fight his whole life, even when he didn't realize it. And at -130, how can you not? Like, how can you not? How can you pass on that line? So give me the Fort Worth
line.
kid, Kevin Holland. Hammer it, lock it in.
There's no way the people will be getting it at -130 by the time this was released. However, if you're getting anything even close to that, up to the -200, Kevin's a slam.
Absolutely. All day long. So moving on, we got the dog of the week, as we normally do. And it feels, I don't want to say it feels like a missed opportunity, but the dog of the week this week almost feels like a missed opportunity to make this a hammer of the week, were it not for Kevin Holland on the same card. And Jake, you can kind of speak to this one a little bit.
Yeah, this was the Hebrewist of hammers, not Tom Levy. And we're getting the guy at -130 to take inside the distance. This is the only fighter from Israel. He is unbelievable in my opinion, and that is not just because he's Jewish. It's only because he's Jewish, actually. I fucking love Natan Levy, the Israeli fighter. He's going to come out and get the finish. What are we sitting at right now? 7-1, 3 submissions on his record. I love the guy. There's nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, and he's awesome. Like, the guy's built like a god. He can strike. He can grapple. He can throw up submissions. He's got it all. He's like whatever the MMA equivalent of a 5-tool athlete in baseball is, that's Natan Levy.
Like 100%.
Give me the slam on Natan Levy, double chance, KO or sub. I love this every single day of the week.
No, so do I. There's no chance he's losing this fight. I bet Israel on it.
Yep.
You are strip on it.
You're the only one on this podcast that can get away with saying that. So I'm glad it was you and not me. All right, and last, but certainly not least, it's everyone's favorite play of the week. We got the parlay of the week. Jake and I threw a couple different options out there. There was a couple different opportunities to play a 2-leg parlay, but we said, absolutely not. We want the 3-legger. Give us the action. Give me all the smoke. This card deserves a 3-leg parlay, and so we dialed one up. So the 3 legs for this week's parlay of the week with the Tai Tuivasa Shui going on in the background is Holland versus Thompson, fight not to go the distance. Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Pavlovich to win in round 1. So if you go on DraftKings, you can bet the fight to be finished in round 1 and it effectively just not start round 2, more or less. But the pick is to win in round 1. So you're picking either guy. Doesn't matter. It can be anyone. Doesn't matter who wins. As long as it happens in the first round, that's a cash. And then we're going Mark Jacasey money line. Mark Jacasey, a guy that we have not talked about yet tonight, but I love. So I think this parlay in its entirety, plus 231, slam it, give it to me all day long. Jake, what do you think about the parlay here? I think Mark Jacasey is a hell of a play.
Yeah, Mark Jacasey for sure. And then, there's just no chance this one gets out of the first round. Like, I don't see how it gets out of the first round. When it becomes this standing brawl that it's going to be, somebody is getting clipped and put away. There is literally just no chance this one doesn't hit. I cannot wait for the graphic of me saying this and watching this fight go to round 2. But that's besides the point. And then this last one, I know you and me, there's a stat I know you're dying to say about why this fight should go the distance or should not go the distance. I don't remember what it is. But Kevin's getting the finish. Like, come on now. Kevin's getting the finish. And if he doesn't, the only way Kevin's not getting the finish is if Wonderboy sneaks him some sort of foot to the face. I don't know. But, yeah, this fight there's no chance going the distance.
Yeah, and you've definitely convinced me on that. Initially, I was of the belief that this fight had a shot to go the distance. And my reasoning behind that was just simply that Wonderboy, when he's not fighting, or excuse me, when he is in a fight where there are no takedown attempts, like 90% of the time, that fight goes the distance. And then Kevin Holland, bigger octagon, might not be able to find Wonderboy as easily, might not be able to cut off the cage. But I think we've hit both of those points tonight. You mentioned that you think Stephen Thompson is going to be a little bit slower because he's getting up there in age. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. And we also mentioned that Kevin Holland stands a pretty good chance of shooting some takedowns, that he could absolutely mix it up knowing what Wonderboy brings to the table. So both of the points that I was basing my decision on thinking that this fight would go the distance, we've kind of flipped on their heads, and we think it's going to go the other way. So I'm on board with does not go the distance. But you throw it all together, plus 231, slam that shit.
Love it.
Give me the action. I want it.
Love it. Yeah.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We are the last slate of bets we put out, we got a parlay to hit. Why not stay hot? Why not us, right? Why not us? If someone else out there is hitting a parlay on this fight card, why not the kids, you know?
Gotta happen this week. It's gotta happen.
It has to. It has to. We got to keep it hot. And imagine ending the year in December. We got this card. We got one more card. UFC goes down for I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Going to be tragic. Going to be a long 3 weeks. But imagine the vibes rolling into January of 2023 if we hit 3 straight parlays. I mean, come on.
All I know is December's month is going positive.
No doubt.
We are going positive in December.
We don't have a choice. It must. It absolutely must go positive. Come on. It's gonna happen. We're just gonna will this shit into existence. There's no other way.
I agree.
There's no other way.
We're gonna win almost every bet we place.
Yep, we have to. 100% in December. So all the hype about our picks, rightfully so, aside, that was another edition of the Round 6 podcast. I think that about wraps us up. We got all of our bets out there, got all the points that we wanted to talk about out there. As per the usual, go subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're probably on right now. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Go follow us on Instagram at Round6Pod. Got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. We're working hard to get some stuff cranked out here. So I'm super excited about not only the end of this year, but what's in store for the beginning of 2023. So join the rocket ship, as it were. So we're here for it for the long haul. Y'all should be too. We really enjoy it. Hope y'all do too.
Sir.
Jake, you got anything else you want to bring the people before we sign off and go slam 19 bets for this card?
Only thing I'm bringing the people is money this week. I'm guaranteeing a positive week this week. Put it in. I'm guaranteeing it.
Check the Instagram for the reel on Sunday when we go 0 for 19. But we're not going to go 0 for 19. We're willing an undefeated December into existence. I'm here for it. It's going to happen. So there will be no reel on Sunday of that clip, hopefully.
Oh, I really hope not.
Yeah, we're really going off the rails here. But like I said, that was another edition, Round 6 podcast. Can't wait to see what Saturday brings. I think both of us are absolutely ecstatic to get to watch Kevin Holland go out there and work his magic, as he always does. But until next time, you guys have a good one.